Can you hear me without the mic?
I think you do. Sorry.
Well, I'm not going to use it. What was your name?
Abby.
It is a fascinating process to have a last name that starts with an S, because you walk in the room thinking you're going to say one thing, and then you hear what other people have to say, and you start to step back a little bit and think about the audience. If I was in your seat, what would I want to hear? And so it's a fascinating process because political parties don't want what you see up here. There are a lot of people in this primary, and I love it. I love it because you get to hear people with different experiences talk to you about what the future of this party is, what it means to be progressive, and ultimately what world we want to hand off to our children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. My name is Sran. I'm a lawyer, I'm a teacher, a school founder, and I'm an entrepreneur. I have lived in the district in Ashburn since 2004 with my wife and 2 daughters. And my life's work has been to build a better world. I wrote President Carter a letter when I was 8 telling him how to fix the Middle East. I don't think he actually read it. His picture was pretty amazing. But what I'm struck by is we're all here because we know something is profoundly wrong. Wrong in a way that it's never been wrong in our lifetimes. In our country, in the United States of America, where the Enlightenment thrived, and we were on this path with the election of Barack Obama to, we had reached, as Martin Luther King, the mountaintop, right? And I think we kind of fell asleep at the wheel because we had succeeded. And I know I had. I have intentionally stayed out of politics because I wanted to focus on education. So I'm a poli-sci major who's a lawyer, whose PhD is in political decision-making, and I never put my toe in the water. And then Donald Trump was elected. And what I realized is I spend every day trying to build a better world for my students and my children so that they are the next generation of leaders. And I have great optimism about the world they will build. But with Donald Trump, I realized it can all be undone. And we see that. We see a full-on assault on progress in women's rights, civil rights, environmental protection, public goods, public protection, safety net. Everything you can think of is under assault. And we sit here and we think, how did this happen? Where did these people come from? And clearly it's not, it's nothing new. I mean, African Americans will tell you racism is nothing new. My parents are Sikh and Hindu. Right after 9/11, the first people getting shot in their driveways were Sikh Americans because they thought they were Muslim Americans, which is no kind of excuse. If you're reacting to people based on their race or their background, it's un-American. And so the reason I am running is I operate under the principle of justified optimism. I'm a history teacher. If you look at the suffrage movement in 1918 or 1916, if you look at the arguments about slavery in the 1850s, if you look at the Constitutional Convention in 1787 and people wondering, can people govern themselves? History shows us the impossible is possible. And the reason I asked Abby's name is, I don't think this race is about 2018 at all. I don't think it's about 2020. This is one of the most affluent, most highly educated, most progressive districts in the country. How will we lead this country to where we know it should go? That is the question for me. And yes, I want to beat Donald Trump. But to be honest, I have to thank Donald Trump for packing this room and getting 7 of us up here and getting us all fired up for progressive outcomes, rather than just letting go of the steering wheel and saying, oh, we think the party's got it. We think it's going in the right direction. And so I think we're in the room, and I think what you're looking for is someone who is going to articulate a vision of a future that is a continuation of the great work that's already been done, and is not going to allow us, any of us, women, minorities, immigrants, LGBTQ Americans, to have to take a step back, which is what we're seeing now. And I think it is not about merely pointing out what Trump is doing wrong, because that is exhausting. When you open up your Facebook feed, I mean, what do you want to do? You want to throw the phone away? You want to cover your head? You want to turn the lights off? It reminds me of a story of a teacher I knew. Amazing teacher, totally out front, life of the party. And then at lunch, this is not an exaggeration, would go into a small office, turn off the lights, and hide under the desk. Because it was too much. It was too much for him, and he had to then come out and recharge. And I feel that's where we are now. But this is our great opportunity. This is our great opportunity for us to make a case to independents, business people who voted for Trump, white women who voted for Trump, to say, we're here for you. You made a mistake. We understand that. We are not going to just attack you for it. We are going to show you a better way, because we know the better way. As progressives, it's in the name. We are only committed to making progress. And that means lots of things. To me, that starts with education. It is the only engine of economic opportunity and real social justice. My parents came from India to get an education. My dad went to Howard University in the middle of the civil rights movement. You couldn't use the bathroom between Washington, D.C. and New York, whether you were Indian, or you're from Guyana, or you were a child of slaves, right? That is a story. And yet, here I am running for office. They were redlined out of housing, but here I am running for office. We know where we need to go. And if we point the way, as Abby said, people who made this huge error, people I love to death. I interviewed every business person I knew in Loudoun County, and they all voted for Trump. And I couldn't understand, I love these people. How did you do this? The Democrats just aren't a pro-business party. And so when I think about what we need to do, I think Abby has nailed it. We need to talk about this better way that we offer, that is inclusive, that is about protecting public resources like the environment, that is about providing a safety net for the marginalized and poor communities. Otherwise, the same people always get hurt. You want to know what's going to happen? Look at poor white people, look at minorities, look at immigrants. They always get hurt. And we know that, and we put an end to that with our policies. So public education, defend public education, but also transform it for the 21st century. I created an independent school because I wanted to give teachers a chance to just try cool stuff. Let's talk about great books. Let's go on field trips. Let's invite great speakers and let's open it up. Let's have the difficult conversations. How many of you read the new Jim Crow? Any of you read that about mass incarceration? Our 7th graders read that book. That's how you change the world. Number 2, we must defend until the very end the rights of the most marginalized and most vulnerable communities. We cannot yield on that. Republicans are really good about this. You want gun control? I'm not going to give it to you. It makes sense. People are dying. School shootings? We're not going to give it to you. And the base is exciting. What are we willing to go to the mats on? And for me, it is about the most marginalized communities. We have to defend them. And number 3, I'm a private sector progressive. We just have to give local small businesses a reason to come back to the Democratic Party. They do not want to be Republicans right now. They do not want to be caught up in social conservatism. Let's give them a reason to come back. Now, of course, transportation is a big deal. We have to focus on the environment. But ultimately, it's those 3 things. And I believe we can get a real, not just a blue wave, an American wave, back in this mindset of real optimism if we commit to progressive policies. I thank you very much. There's a minute. I want to open it up for a question.
I'm not going to be left out this time. I'm an international development professional. I've been in the field for 25 years. I've worked in Afghanistan and Pakistan. I'd love to speak with you later about that. I'm going to throw in 3 questions. I know you can't answer all 3. First one is complacency. That, I think, was mentioned by you, Paul. And that is, how are we going to get a complacent voter that, in fact, stayed home because they didn't like either candidate? How will we, as supporters of Democrats, get that complacency sort of removed to reinvigorate politics.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I'll throw up these other things too, because this is about women, and again, Paul, you mentioned these, and that is, what are we going to do about that white, educated woman who chose this president? Because I don't like to say his name, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And I was at a wonderful event at the Women's National Democracy Club or something. 2 days before the march, I marched in both marches. And I saw the women that created this march. And I asked them, so are we seeing any change in that sort of demographic? And they said marginally. So how are we going to help to do that? And my last question is related to women again.
I don't know if there's question.
And that is ERA. I was in Richmond 2 weeks ago lobbying for ERA, and it didn't pass.
I'll go really quickly. The complacency question is, I think, the really big one. I think immediately, number one, you have to listen. You've got to listen to what voters are talking about. You can't come up here and have all the answers. And number two, authenticity. I think Barack Obama was the best example of this. I mean, I'm talking on the phone to current Trump voters who voted for Obama because they believed that he was listening and that he was authentic. Now, on the issue of certain voters, there are certain issues we cannot yield on. I mean, the right of a woman to choose. Obviously, a lot of white women voted on that issue. There's nothing we can do about that. But I believe talking about the future, talking about solutions that will matter to their kids and grandkids will make the difference. Thank you very much.